Okay, what's up? Hey, this is my first YouTube video. Depending on how many of these I actually end up uploading, a lot of people, or the ones that want to watch this, will come back and watch this video. And what this video is my story so far. So, yeah, uh, I'm not gonna say like the ending because I know that's how a lot of YouTube videos are in that they say like this is the ending outcome, but this is solely for if you are traversing YouTube or you're like a family friend or like random person that follows me but I don't know who you are, that wants to listen. Yeah, so I'm gonna tell my story, not my full story. Like I'm not gonna start at when I was like a kid because those things are less controllable than right now. So I'm going to start at 19. And I'm going to tell a story about how I got to where I am right now. All right, so we'll do like a medium version, not like a super in depth. So my name is Darian Edwards. I was born in Brooklyn, New York, grew up in Belvedere, New Jersey, and along the way, I don't know, I'm acting nervous. I've told the story 100 times. So pretty much after high school, I literally did nothing for the first 3 months. Like I'm pretty sure I played GTA wasn't out yet, so I played Call of Duty with my friends like every single day. Like we would pretty much play from 2 in the afternoon to like I don't know 4, 5, 6, 7 in the morning, and that was my life. And then I remember my mom like after 2 months straight of doing this, like I had 60 days, 60, okay, at least 30. I know I had at least 30, but I'm pretty sure it was 2 months. So 60 days worth of in-game playtime. Days. Like actually playing 60 days. I don't even know. They say there's like what 156 something or whatever, however many hours in a week. So multiply that by 8. I had that many days of game time. So always been a gamer, but that's not what the story is about. So I did that for 2 months, June, July, and then eventually my mom was like, "Hey, dude, like I wasn't ever planning on going to college." She was like, "You need to get a job," and I was like, "Okay." Like, what else? I don't remember exactly. I'm 29 now, so back at this time, I 2013. I'm 19. I don't know a lot about life. You think you do, right, at that age, but you don't. Even at my age now, 29, I don't know a lot about life. So I'm like, sure. I go and literally apply for like one job, and my mom's kind of like a referral for me. She helps me get it. I get a job as like a homemade for people with disabilities. I don't know the correct term right now. I know like it changes. Like at the time, I think it was like people with special needs, or I know there's like a not safe, but like correct way to say it now. I'm not sure. I'm not in that industry anymore. But like people with special needs. And I was the overnight, and I did that for a year. But during that time, I want to say 3 or 4 months into this job, I got introduced to the world of network marketing. Some people watching this video, if you get this far, well, if you're going back, you're probably going to watch the whole thing. So you might know about network marketing. It's like you get recruited into this thing, and this is the basic version. And most of the time, because you have no sales and marketing experience, you just go to all your friends and family, say, "Oh my God, join this thing. We can all make so much money." And then you never learn how to sell the product or sell the company or sell your why. And then you go, "Oh, this doesn't work." And then you move on. I did not do this. I dove head in, and for the first month, I was like when I took it took me a bit of time when I got first introduced to it in November of 2013, And it probably took me like a month and a half to really finally make a decision to join. But I almost joined literally that weekend that it was first showed me, because to me it made sense. I grew up in a super super small town, so I never ever knew. I never knew about. I'll give you an example. I never knew what people did in office buildings. Like I thought they were all secretaries. Like I had no idea about consultants and data analysts and financial analysts. Like, you kind of know those things exist, but like I didn't know like what to call. I didn't know. So, and I just graduated high school and I didn't plan on going to college. So in my mind, I was like gonna get a job, go get a 1 bedroom apartment. I doubt you could afford that now. This was 10 years ago, and get a dog. And now it's gonna be my whole life. Like, I'm not afraid to say that I was a loser. I'm not the coolest motherfucker now. I don't know if I'm going to curse in this, but whatever. I said a curse word. I'm not the coolest motherfucker now, but I was a big loser back then. So, network marketing. And I'll go more in depth. Like, I'm going to separate it. Right now, I'm just telling the overall story. So, I joined this company, and for the first 3 or 4 weeks, I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just like posting on Facebook, like talking to my friends and family, saying, "Oh my God, this is a great opportunity." Blah blah blah. It was like $100 a month, but I think I made like $600 a paycheck back then for 2 weeks of work. 680, I think, were my paychecks were, and so it was $100 a month. I was like, cool, I could do that. I buy $100 worth of random Amazon stuff. I was buying the craziest stuff on Amazon back then. Like random, like just nerd stuff, like swords and like whatever new game was out. I hope I put on some background. I hope the lighting is nice. I don't know. It's my first video, so this is how it's gonna look. I'm not looking for perfect. I'm looking for raw. So I got some like space white noise in the background. Hopefully, like it's not distracting too much. My email's up on my computer, so I guess if you zoom in, you can see I still order stuff on Amazon. Anyway, yeah, so I join it. First month is like, so I read 2 books. I read How to Become a Network Marketing Pro by Eric Worre. I read Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert T. Kiyosaki. This is not an ad. I'm just showing that I still have the book. I have like a whole little bookcase over there of like books that I said 80% I probably have not even read, but like the business/marketing ones, self-help, like I read those. So I do those things because I realize now I have to become a learner and a reader. And the only type of books I'd read in my life were like fiction, fantasy, and like zombie books. So this is my first time reading a self-help book and taking steps to learn how to better myself, right? And I don't mean quotations. I just mean like I had never done these things. So that teaches me a lot, and I learn more about how to speak to people and how to operate. And I'm like, I get to a couple ranks up. I guess I make my first $100 online, but really that was just enough to pay for the membership. And like I'm like living it up because I'm trying to emulate a style of marketing that I see that is like attractive to me. Like back then, it was like lifestyle marketing is what they called it. So like people kind of still do it, but not as much because it doesn't work that well for like average people. But it was like, you drive the nice cars, you go to Miami, you rent out the crazy places, and like, it works for like young kids. And like, oh my God, I want to live that lifestyle. And that was me. I'm like, oh my God, I want to drive nice cars and get condos in Miami. So that was like the type of lifestyle I'm trying to live in, like a super small town. So I buy a car, I finance a car, which is not even a super nice car. It's nicer than the car I have now, though. I buy a car. Actually, I don't know, because the car I have now is really kicking. So anyway, I financed a car that I really couldn't afford. It was like 1/3 plus insurance. So like half of my paycheck was going to this car now. Because between gas, insurance, and car payment, that was like, I was making, $600 every 2 weeks. That was like most of my pay. So I'm trying to live this lifestyle I can't keep up with. And I'm like, oh my God, I need to make more money now, faster. So like I fall into the kind of like shiny bubble, which is really at the end of the day is like not good mentors. but I'll go more into that later. So I fall into the shiny bubble, jumping around to different network marketing companies, MCA, Total Life Changes. What are some other ones we did? There was like one where you like pay $25 to unlock like training, and then you like can pay deeper and deeper, 75, 125. That one was crazy. I learned about digital marketing, affiliate marketing, and you guys might not know about these things. I can make a separate video on talk about those if you want. But I would make a little bit of money in pretty much everything I did. Like digital marketing made like, you know, a couple hundred. Affiliate marketing made like less than $100, I think. Digital marketing, like Forex trading. I know a lot of people know about Forex trading. I got into that. So this all happened over 2 years of me living in my small town. And eventually, kind of like my true laziness caught up with me, I guess you can say. And it all collapsed on me in a way. Like I couldn't I remember what happened. So I was selling how to Forex trade, right? It was like people what did they do after? Like this is before iMarkets Live, which a lot of people saw as like that Forex scam. This is before iMarkets Live, like probably 2 or 3 years before it. So like 2014, 2015. And I was selling how to with this group called W3A, Ward 3 Associates. And we were selling how to learn the method, the strategy, W3A. I forget what the Lucino, I don't remember what the method was called. But I bet if I opened up some charts, I could do it just off memory, how to trade that way. But I'm not a Forex trader, don't worry. So I was selling that. I think I sold it to like 30 or 40 people. So at like $180 a pop after fees and whatnot. I felt like a baller. I was like, yo, it's like I'm finally doing it. I made a couple $1,000s online, which is more than most people make. And I'm like, oh, I'm finally going to prove everything wrong. And I tried to scale up. Honestly, what happened was I tried to scale up too fast from the money I was making. And I never learned marketing and sales a legitimate way. I learned like some techniques that I didn't have a name for. I just noticed they worked. Like I would post on Facebook and say, like I'd post like 3, 4, 5 times on Facebook, and like most of them like quotes, comedy, some lifestyle stuff, and then like a direct sale. I didn't call it that back then, but like direct, like if you want to learn how to do this, go here. Here are testimonies of people who are actually successful, because there were some people that were actually doing really well in the group, and I was hyped for them. I love when I give advice or somebody goes through me and learns something and they actually get the result they're looking for. That's like my favorite thing. Yeah, so eventually after all that happens, I lose my car, it gets repossessed, right? Because I bought a car that was too expensive for me. Oh, I forgot to say. So I started doing all this in December 2013, and by September 2014, I quit my job. Stupid, don't quit your job before you're actually making decent income. And spent the next 5 months like fucking struggling before I started actually selling that Forex program or trading style. And which is crazy, because when you're struggling, you will work hard to make money. And like I still didn't know enough. Like obviously, if you know what you know now, you would do things differently. But some of the stuff I know now, I'm like, oh my God, if I did that back then, I would have never had to do what ended up happening to me. So I lost my car. I spent another couple months doing absolutely nothing, watching movies. I think I watched like all through the Game of Thrones, all the Marvel movies, playing GTA, getting like 2014, 2015 GTA area, playing a bunch of video games. So by the September, I got my car repossessed in probably like, I don't know, April or May of 2015. So 2 months later, and I'm living at my mom's house this whole time. So loser, like I said. My mom's like, you gotta leave. Not in like a bad way, but like, hey, you can't stay here, because I live in a small town. If you didn't have a car, you literally couldn't do anything. So I ended up going to Baltimore to live with my dad, and because he lived in the city, so he could like get around. And I ended up getting a job as a mechanic. So I had never worked on cars in my life. I had no idea what the heck. Like I learned everything on the job, and I'm really thankful that they taught me that, because now I'm way more comfortable at working on my car and like willing to like do things that like I wouldn't have been willing to change like basic stuff, but like things I wouldn't have been willing to do now. Uh, tires, oil changes, brakes, like something underneath the hood, like really basic stuff, like stuff I wouldn't have done before. Whereas now I'm like, cool, I'll take a look at this and see if this is something I can do or should do or something I can bring into the dealership. So I worked there for a year, and behind the scenes I was still trying to make something work. At this point I think I was still trying to make like actually learn how to trade the forex market, which is very hard because you have to be very disciplined and like strict and in control of your emotions, which looking back, even, and I'm still learning every single day as an adult, as a 29-year-old, I was not in control of. So yeah, so I did that for a year, and me and my dad, we like butt heads all the time, not talk. It just wasn't working out. So he ended up kicking me out. And I had been talking to my brother, Chris, about moving. He lived down in Miami. So I moved down to Miami after that. I moved down to Miami in November of 2016. So I remember 2015, I had to move to Baltimore. 2016 is the year later. I moved to Miami. I get down there. My brother's like, yo, I just quit my job. I have like maybe a couple $100. Like I'm still trying to figure things out. And it got so quiet behind me. One sec. Just making sure that's still going. So I'm down in Miami. I'm like riding, like he has a longboard, and that's like how I get around. I'm like, dang, I need transportation because we can't just go back and forth on a longboard. So I have an Apple Watch. I take my Apple Watch at the time, I don't remember what series, I sell it on Facebook Marketplace, and I go to Walmart and buy a bike for like $100. Back when you could do this, back when bikes were only $100. Now they're like at least $300-$400 for like even the most basic. This is like a mountain bike, and I rode that bike like 75 miles a week all around Miami. So that was my transportation. So for the next couple of weeks, I rode my bike all around Miami, trying to find a job. And like everywhere I'd go, they'd like speak to me in Spanish. I'm like this kid from a small town in New Jersey. Like I took Spanish and French in high school, but I was garbage. Never was a good student. Probably could have been, but whatever. So they were like, you can't work here. Eventually, I got a job as a dishwasher, which looking back, I was not in a bad job, but I was getting paid $300 every other week. It was part-time. They wouldn't let me go full-time because then they have to pay you benefits, and it would just be too much. So I worked, I think 5 hours a shift, 20 hours a week, 4 days a week, and no. 4 hours a shift, 5 days a week. Yeah, that's what I did. 4 hours a shift, 5 days a week. And the 2 other days, like this is when I ended up actually going into the military. So I'll tell you that story right now. I was still looking for a job in Miami, went to a job fair, and like I was like walking around the job fair, like there was like the army in the corner, and I was like walking to every table, avoiding, because I'm like, I'm not, my dad always told me to go into the military. I was like, nah, I'm not doing that, because I thought the military was all like kicking down doors and shooting guns and throwing grenades and fighting wars. And I'm like, I'm a punk, like back then, I can't do that. So eventually I'm like, screw it. Let me just go see what the army has to say. After all these other guys were looking at me in my raggedy button down, like, okay, kid, yeah, leave your resume. My resume was night and day. Home care, mechanic. They're like, yeah, here you go. Like, what am I going to do with this? So I go and talk to the army, and they give me like a pamphlet and show me all the jobs. And I was like, oh yeah, like, I'll call you guys, right? Like, I'm not going to give you my information. And one day I'm at a tea like / coffee shop called Tea and Poets in Miami. If you're down in Miami, check it out. It's still, last time I checked, it was still going on, still happening. And I'm like reading through the book, and I'm like, oh my God, this is not an army military ad, by the way. There are a lot of jobs you can do that are not infantry, which sounds kind of lame saying out loud, but like, I understand a lot of people think they're joining the military and all they're going to do is be shooting guns and fighting wars. Like, that's not the reality of it, because majority of the military, like 85%, is supporting the 15% who are ground units. So 85% are all supporting 15% of which the military is like ground units, right? So I'm like doing my research, and like at this time I am in like what I like think in my head is like really bad debt, like 400, maybe like low 400s credit score, repossession, like $17,000 in debt. As somebody who never made more than, at that time, I never made more than 12 or, I'm doing some quick math here. I never made more than like $15,000 a year at this point. Even when I was a mechanic, I was making like $300 a week. So was that like 1,200 times 2 is 24, like literally $12,000 pretty much. It wasn't a lot. So $14,000, whatever. It wasn't a lot of money. So I'm like, oh my God, I'm in crazy debt. What am I going to do? I need to do something. And I don't know how long it's been going, but I'm having a good time. So yeah, I'm like, oh my God, I don't want anyone to find out. So I'm like, which one of these would be easiest? So I'm like, okay, I can swim, but not amazing. So I'm not gonna join the Navy. Air Force seems way too hard to get into. I'm like, it's either the Navy or the Army or the Marines. And I'm like, okay, Army sounds easier. Like, this is where my mind is at back then. I'm like, oh, whatever, what's easier? Now I know that you have to go towards a challenging thing if you really want to go places. So I'm like, okay. So one day I ride my bike. Remember that bike I got? Up to the Army station. I go up to the door and I go to open it, and it says, it doesn't open. I'm like trying to open it, and it says, please use other door. It's literally a glass fucking door. And instead of using instead of using the other one to open the door, I literally see one of the Army guys through the mirror, and he probably looks up at me and like trying to open the door, and it's like, this fucking idiot, literally. And I'm like, oh, well, this doesn't work. And the Army and the Marines are right next to each other. So I'm like, oh, I'll go talk to the Marines. So like maybe like, and I walk in, I'm like, hey, can I reach the Army through here? And they literally start laughing at me. Yeah. And they're like, no. I'm like, okay, well, I was planning on talking to you both. I wasn't, because remember, I wanted to go the easy route. I thought Army would be easier. I never talked to the Army. I spent 4 years in the Marine Corps. So my recruiter was a 3451, which is like a financial management resource analyst. It's like one of the military jobs, one of the MOSs. And he was telling me about like the different positions you can do, because my idea of going into the military was that I want to go in and be able to get out and get a really good job. Like, it didn't make sense, because remember, I looked at the pamphlet, I learned about all the jobs that were in the military, and I realized all the branches have all these different types of jobs. I didn't want to do something where the only thing I could come out and do was like be a cop or security guard. That wasn't my goal. So I went in and I took the ASVAB, which is like the test to see like what you qualify for. I qualify for every job in the military, and I go to MEPS, I think the place was called, and I find out I'm colorblind in one of my eyes. And I'm like, I've always passed the colorblind test, like at least before I graduated high school. And I remember I got brake cleaner in my eye when I worked at Goodyear, and that was the eye that was jacked up, which also started to mess up my vision. So originally I wanted to be air traffic controller, because air traffic control was like one of the jobs that paid the most as soon as you got out of the military. And my second choice was what my recruiter's MOS was, which was the financial management. And so I ended up, like, out of my 4 choices, I had like air traffic controller, financial management, linguistics, and I just put infantry at the bottom, because I was like, I don't want to do any other jobs. And if I have to be a fucking grunt, that's what I'll do. So I don't get air traffic controller because I get disqualified. You have to not be colorblind. And I get financial management. So the military was always easy for me. Like, literally, all I gotta do is work out. Like, this is not a military ad. All I gotta do is work out, follow orders, very simple orders, like show up on time, especially when you work in finance. Show up on time, do your job diligently, whatever. Clean your freaking room. And I get paid to work out. I was like, sure. And I will go more in depth on all these stories and tell different aspects, but I wanted to tell the overall picture. Yeah, so like the military is easy. And I did my 4 years and I got out. I got a nice little gig. I remember just being super happy and telling people my pursuit of happiness story because no one had really realized what I had been through. And I gave like an overall picture, but like when you're living the day to day, it's way different than when you look back and tell the story. Like you can kind of look back and be like, oh, I was happy. But like the day to day, you're like, what am I going to do? Because you really don't know. So, yeah, I got out, got a nice job. I was stationed in Virginia, Quantico, Virginia. So I ended up moving up to DC. And I don't know if you're going to get any crazy value out of this or anything. This is just me telling my story. And I want to keep posting videos and telling my story. So, yeah, now I live in DC and I'm in a studio apartment, junior 1 bedroom, but like, I didn't think I'd end up here. I think it's the big thing. And I will get more into what I do these days as far as extracurricular activities outside of my regular job to still chase that dream, Lambos. No, not really. But like, I've matured. But like, not even happiness, but freedom. But I have a lot of freedom now. My life is really presentably good mentally. I'm like, we're getting there. But I'm here because I know that looking back, and I'll keep sharing parts of my stories till you understand the full picture so that I can showcase what happens next, and also not only so that I can look back, but so that other people can look back and be like, okay, this guy is still at ground zero. I'm still at ground zero when it comes to making things happen. And I want you to be able to look back and be like, okay, like this is where he was at in 29. And in 10 years, you'd be like, oh man, this is everything he did in the last 10 years. Because a lot of people don't start making videos until they're successful. And they're like, this is what I did. I woke up at 5 a.m. and I drank water and I meditated and I blah, 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 right? Like, this is for people who need someone that was more at their level. I don't know what I'm going to call this series, and I'll tell you more about what I'm doing as it goes on. But if you made it this far, I really appreciate it. Thanks for listening in. Leave a comment, and tell me a little bit about yourself and your story. And if you have any questions, I'd love to try and answer them, and maybe like answer them in a video or whatever. But I really appreciate you listening in. Stick around. Like, comment, subscribe. Do whatever you want. Like, if you listen to the whole thing, I might pop up on your thing again, and I'll try to upload pretty consistently. And yeah, this is the end, but not really. My name is Darian Edwards, and the story continues. Peace.